Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Work From Home Show. Shout out to all our homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the work from homers out there. I'm Naresh. Today we have Sandra Magsamen on the show. She is a multiple #1 New York Times bestselling author of Welcome Little One, A Love Letter to You, as well as Looky, Looky, Little One on the Farm, a sweet interactive seek and find adventure for babies and toddlers, and the new book, which I just read to my son who is playing in the living room, Silly Santa, a touch and feel holiday joke book. Sandra Magsamen is one of the most popular children's authors. Sandra, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Thank you so very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Let's hear about your story first. Let's hear about how you got to writing. I'm assuming almost all of your books, if not all of your books, are children's books. Tell us about that first book, how you got it published, and even before that, how you got into writing children's books in the first place.
I've been in the publishing business for a very long time, well over 25 years. But I started, as a child and as a human being, I was always artistic. I loved to paint and draw and write, went to art school, did my degree in fine art. And then I realized that, for me, communication was about creating art and words together. So I really found that I came to know myself through art. And I then began pursuing the idea to become a therapist, and I became an art therapist. My master's degree is in art therapy. So I work with all sorts of folks in different situations and different facilities, all the while helping people use creativity and art to come to know themselves, to connect and to communicate and to heal. And out of that work, I began writing poetry and words that help people connect one heart at a time. I created these little ceramic plaques with messages on them. The handle was filled with beads that I found from antique stores and vintage shops. And I began selling them at craft shows. And they were little pieces of poetry. And before I knew it, I had this business booming out of the basement of my house. And I was selling the work at the New York Gift Show. And there I began meeting agents and publishers who were like, well, these are poems. Could you create books? And so I began writing books. And the first children's book, I first published gift books for sisters and friends and mothers, and that was with Stuart Tabori and Chang. And then I was able to meet an incredible editor at Scholastic, and I wrote a book for my then 12-year-old daughter, Hannah, that was called When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Me. And she had come to me and said, Mom, I don't know how to grow up. I don't know what to be. And I said, well, you have everything you need to be everything who you are. Let's talk about that. So I began writing a poem for her called When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Me. And it's all the things that a young girl needs to think about in order to be herself, which is she has all those traits, all those attributes, but she has to recognize it and celebrate herself, learn about her differences, and believe in herself. So Scholastic published that book almost 25 years ago. It's a picture book, and they are reissuing that book next year, which I couldn't be more delighted. I'm so thrilled. And that's began my career in children's publishing. And I've been working with Scholastic ever since. As a therapist, I know very clearly that those first years of a child's life, our children grow and develop, and their brain grows the most in those first 3 years than in any other time in our life. So engaging with kids, interacting, reading, singing, coloring, playing, laughing, dancing, all of those activities help to create that child and to create that brain so that they can be the best they can be. So I began creating books with Scholastic for young children and bringing in an interactivity. As an artist, I began realizing that I love just a single board book or a picture book, but what else could we do to help a child engage more? So we put bunny ears on I Love You, Honey Bunny. I Rough You has little dog ears. I Love You, Little Stinker has the tail of a skunk on it. It's a big skunk on the cover. I Love You Even When You're Crabby has little crab arms coming out the top. So we began to really look at books as three-dimensional objects that children could hug and hold and really live in and engage in. And that's the career that I've had with Scholastic all these years, making books that are engaging and interactive, and each one is a love letter to our children.
I looked up When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Me. It's not really available on Amazon. That's a really interesting book. I like books like that. I think they're
Yeah,
very relevant today, so I
yeah, it'll
can't
be out in
wait until
spring of 2025. Yeah.
I can't wait until that one comes out. I'm definitely going to get that for my kids. I want to talk a little bit about art therapy because I'm surprised. I've been to therapists. We've interviewed a lot of therapists on the show, and we've never talked or even heard about art therapy.
Mhm.
Even someone who's not artistic, can they do art therapy? Is art therapy also just writing? Like, can
Yeah.
anyone do it?
Oh, yeah. Art therapy is a whole genre, and people are trained specifically to use various mediums to help people come to understand themselves more. Sometimes people just talking, they don't get to where they need to go. They might draw images, they might find songs that tell them that express what they're feeling. It's just a vehicle. It's a roadway, it's a highway, it's a gateway to understanding yourself in a way that's most available to you. And for me as a kid, I didn't use words much at all. I found words were very hard to communicate. My grandmother taught me how to knit. I began embroidering. I baked cakes and I gave them to people that I cared about. Those are ways I could connect and communicate. And today we know, neuroscientists know that just the very act of creating, whether it's um, singing a song, whether it's knitting, whether it's crocheting, whether it's baking a cake, whether it's dancing just spontaneously, we know that that act itself helps the brain to calm down, to meditate, to heal. My twin sister, Susan Magsamen, she's working at Hopkins, and she just wrote a book called Your Brain on Art, where she went through all the literature and met with groups and labs all over the world of neuroscientists who are engaged in neuro arts. And they documented all the studies that show that the brain benefits from any kind of art activity. And it just helps heal, it helps settle us, it helps center us. So we know art is healing in its very nature. And you don't have to be talented in it to do it. Even a doodle will help your brain heal and calm down and reduce anxiety. So it's a known fact. It's scientifically driven now, and the work that I do, engages some of those ideas in that we're looking at helping kids work through their developmental milestones in the first 0 to 4 years in life, engaged in interactivity because we know that really helps the brain, and we know they take those skills with them and self-soothing skills throughout their lifetime.
Well, I've been saying from a non-scientific, non-therapeutic perspective that just being active, not sitting at home and looking at Instagram and TikTok all day, getting out of the house, it doesn't matter if you're a kid. I have two young kids who are 4 and under, or whether you're an adult, you need to get out, do the art, but also do the sports. It's a way, like you said, to interact with other people, other kids,
Yeah.
to not feel lonely. I think physical activity, just going to the gym, is also another way. Talk therapy can only do so much. That's just one minor aspect of it. But art therapy, I'm all for. I've found writing, I'm a writer myself. I've written and published 5 books, and I found writing to be therapeutic as well. But I'm also very active. It's just important to get out of the house and not lock yourself in your house.
I think you've made such incredibly important points. We all want to connect. We want to belong, love, and be loved. And we certainly want to love ourselves. And we do need time alone and time to get centered and put our goals in order and our priorities and all of that. But getting out and making those connections in the world, even if it's just with nature, I think walking is really powerful too. But getting out and being involved, going to a coffee shop, having a cup of coffee, saying hello to somebody, just generally connecting. And it's those little ways that add up to make those big impacts. And in terms of writing, journaling is one of the most important things we can do because we start to begin to write the things that are priorities in our lives. And sometimes those things that might be bothering us begin to bubble up through that writing. Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way, she says you should sit down and write 3 pages, just endlessly. Don't think about what you're writing, just write, 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 write. And by the time you finish, all the junk has gotten out of your head and out of your hands onto the page. And you write. You don't do it on a computer. You write with a pen, the old-fashioned way. And and then before you know it, those little things that are bothering you come up, and like the big ideas start to bubble up. There's another technique that I love that Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, suggests, and she asks you to sit down and write yourself a letter, but the letter comes from love, not from you to you, but love signs it, love, love. And you just write as if love is writing you a letter and see what love has to say to you. And I've done this a few times and I find it really beautiful because it's a really non-judgmental way to communicate to yourself from the love in your heart. And it kind of is a real boost to yourself. And I think that's a beautiful way to find your center and sort of reconnect on those days where connection seems a little bit lost.
I didn't know you were also a therapist. You're an author, you're an artist, you're an art therapist, a designer. Do you do all of these professions today? Are you still all of these? You
Mhm.
draw your books, you illustrate your
Yes,
books, you write your
yes,
books.
yes.
You
Yeah,
what do
I
you
wear
still
a,
design the crafts? You said you used to go to the trade shows and sell the craft. Do you still do that?
yes, I don't do that anymore. No.
Okay.
Really my and as a therapist, I'm no longer seeing patients. I really feel like I still am a therapist. I mean, all these hats are still part of me. All these parts of me are what makes me who I am. So the idea that I was a product designer for many, many years, that led me to be able to write poetry and begin to think about how do we share this poetry. And in the beginning, I wrote them on ceramic plaques and beaded them. And now I'm writing messages of acceptance and love and understanding and connectivity, but I'm writing them for children now. And I'm creating books that have ears and tails and things like that. So it's all the same, it's I'm using mediums and modalities that are still the same of what reflects who I am and what my mission is. And I think ultimately my mission is to help people connect one heart at a time. And right now I'm working really to work with young children and families because I think, as a therapist, when you look and you're working with folks who are in their 50s and 60s and you see the problems that might still be part of their lives or the insight that they're having, it all really goes back to believing in yourself and following your heart and believing in your dream and being connected and feeling loved. So I've always felt as a therapist, if I can write books and put messages in the world through the work that I do for children, hopefully these children are going to grow up to be healthy, happy kids with agency and self-esteem who believe in themselves and who want to go out in the world and be the best that they can be. So I feel like I'm still a therapist in that way. I'm just inventing as an artist, new ideas to do that and new stories and imagery. And, I'm connecting, with the people I love. I work with my daughter and my sister in my business. I work with incredible people in the publishing field. I collaborate on all the books. I mean, a book is not made by one person. There's editors and art directors and salespeople and marketing people and the actual manufacturer and printers themselves. So it's very collaborative. So I have this huge, loving and creative community that I work with. So all of those hats are things that I wear. It's not really one thing, but it's the things that make me me, and what my gift is and what I can put in the world. That's kind of all those hats put together, to make, who I am.
How many books have you written?
I've written about 200 books.
Oh, wow. And you've been writing for what, 30 years now?
Yeah, about 30. Yeah. Yeah, about 30 minutes. Well, the
So
first
you
part,
come out
I've
with
been writing my
about
whole life.
7 to 8 books a year.
Yes. So,
And
and some
this is all
years
through Scholastic and your publisher and your
I've
agent?
worked Yes, I've worked with many publishers. Scholastic, I've been with the longest. I've been with Scholastic 25 years, just about 25 years. But I work with Source Books, that's a part of Penguin Random House. I've worked with Little Brown. I've worked with Rizzoli. I've worked with Stuart Tamori and Chang. I've worked with lots of people in the industry, lots of publishers in the industry, depending on what I wanted to do and what was the publisher and who was the publisher that understood that work. And, we're kind of partners. I mean, publishing are relationships. You build relationships with your publisher, with the editors, with, all the folks that touch that book. So, I've met a lot of really amazing people over these years, and we continue to create together and believe that books matter and that books change lives. So, we're just always inventing on what's the next thing and what's the area and the message and how can we best deliver that message.
I told you that I'm a father of two young children. How can parents build on that connection at home when reading to their children? Not just reading your books, any book, but anything else outside of the books.
I think that the big answer comes in small gestures. I think if you really think about it, when you sit and you read with the child, whether the child is sitting on your lap or they're laying in bed or you're sitting in a chair, you're connected just physically, heart to heart with that child. So just the act of sitting and being is an act of connection that deepens your relationship with that child. And when you read, when you engage together with a child in reading and having them look at the pictures, hear the words, they often want to say the words back to you. In a book like what we're talking about today, Silly Santa, you're gonna give them the prompt for the joke. Like, for example, what kind of photos do Elfies take? That's you reading, the parent reading, and you're gonna tell them the joke, the answer the first time. Well, of course, it's Elfies. Now, when you read it again, your little one's going to know the answer and they're going to say, Elfies. So now all of a sudden you've got laughter, you've got play, you've got interaction. So it's these small little steps in every single way that you engage with that child. It's the hug, it's the laugh, it's the kiss on the head. It's just sitting and being together and enjoying it. Those little steps add up to the big deal, which is they know they're loved. You've had this memorable experience and a moment that will last a lifetime.
Are there any new creative outlets that you want to explore?
Yes, there are new creative outlets that I want to explore. I'm really interested in working by writing books with nonprofits and organizations that are helping women and children around the world. For example, we just did a book called Hip Hip Hooray, We Have Water Today, and it's to help a nonprofit called Hippo Rollers, which is a big wheel that's filled with water that you push like a wheelbarrow, and it's for women who are traditionally charged with getting water in places like in South Africa, and children who then can't go to school because they're fetching water all day long. So this tool helps them get water safely and quickly so they can engage in work or school or just being in the family. So that book is being generated in order to raise funds for that organization so that more hippo rollers can be bought. I'm interested in doing that kind of work. I also work here in Vermont. We work to create a gardening program for kids at the local elementary school so that they can learn where food comes from and they can be a part of creating healthy food for themselves and learn how to grow, to harvest, to make food. I'm really interested in that. Um, I'm looking now, I just had my 65th birthday and I'm starting to write for that age, like how life shifts when women, kind of are in that part of their life. And I'm looking at creating some journals and some activities, living artfully activities related to that. So I'm always thinking about, how do I connect and communicate and what are those messages that I need to understand and learn and what I might be able to do to share with the people, in my life and people around the world. So I'm kind of waiting and looking for things to bubble up that really interest me. And right now, those are the three areas that I'm really focused on. And I'm really excited about. I also really love encouraging other people's creativity. Get a lot of emails from folks who have written a story, grandmother for their grandchildren or grandfather or parent. People are really interested in how they can publish their books and how they can get their work out there. So, I do a little bit of mentoring and I write people back and I give them my best thoughts on that. But I do encourage people to follow their passion. And if they have a story to tell to their grandchildren or their kids, write it, get it down, self-publish it, move it forward. Don't let those ideas just fade away and bring them into your life. So that's a really important passion for me too.
Completely agree with that. I wrote a book called From Nobody to Best-Selling Author, and it talks about how everybody has a book within them and why they should write their book. But we've done a
I
few
love
episodes on that.
I love that. And I think that is so true. Often people will write and they'll tell me they have this great idea. And I'm like, well, show it to me. And they're like, well, I haven't done
Yeah,
it yet. I'm like, do it.
yeah.
Like I think there's this, I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen if you do it? And there isn't, there isn't a worst thing. I mean, you're going to share it with whoever you share it with. And, I never dreamed that my career would be what it is. And the first book wasn't a big hit. I had to keep honing my craft, keep working, keep doing. And before you know it, you come to see what it is that I'm really passionate about. And if I'm really passionate about it, I feel like other people become passionate about it, because it's authentic and it's true. And you just have to do that until you really come to know yourself and then do your work, figure out what that is and put yourself on the planet. Like you always say, you're one of a kind. There's nobody like you. So what do you have to bring to the world, and bring it in your most true sense? That's always what my advice is.
That's Sandra Magsamen. Her latest book is Silly Santa, a touch and feel holiday joke book. She's a multiple #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than 200 books. I don't think we've interviewed anyone on this show. We've interviewed a lot of authors, but nobody who's done more than 200 books. So congratulations for that, Sandra. The website is sandramagsamen.com. You spell the last name Magsamen, Magsamen, sandramagsamen.com. Sandra, any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners or anything else you want to promote?
No, I just wish everyone an absolute Merry Christmas and a silly Christmas too. Have a lot of fun with your family and friends.
I agree. Keep it merry, keep it silly. And to all our listeners, check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. Follow us on social media, Facebook, X. If you have any questions, hello at workfromhomeshow.com. That's hello at workfromhomeshow.com. And until next week, keep on working from home.